Over at Mothersilluminated, and today we have an interesting guest on the show. It's Jeremy Kauffman, and we're going to be learning about cryptocurrencies. I've had a lot of different moms kind of reaching out to me, what is this whole crypto thing? What's it about? Can we use it for investing? Is it actually a different form of currency? So we're going to kind of talk about all of that. So if you can kind of give us a little bit of background around yourself and
I'm the CEO of a company called LBRY, which is a cryptocurrency itself.
Mm-hmm.
I will say we encourage buying our token so that you can use it. That's a lot of why I'm excited about cryptocurrency is I think it lets us do some interesting new things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's absolutely true that people people buy it for investment. A lot of people buy Bitcoin for that reason. And I can talk about what cryptocurrency is. How it works, why people are buying it, and some of what I think we can do with it, which is why I'm particularly really excited about it.
Okay. Yeah, so let's kind of start off with the basics. So there's, obviously crypto.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the American dollar is generally, they say it's supposed to be backed by gold and, that kind of thing, and that's kind of where it gets its value.
Yeah.
So where does crypto get its value and what really is crypto?
Right. Well, the dollar hasn't been backed by gold.
That's why I say that's what they say.
It used to. There was a time. I think we ended that during World War II. I'll start actually by talking about what a blockchain is, and cryptocurrency. Sort of the relationship there is cryptocurrency uses blockchain, and blockchain is really the innovation. That's what's new. And blockchain this is going to sound boring, but hopefully we'll get somewhere exciting. A blockchain is a new type of database. And if database is already a word, it's got you kind of like rolling your eyes. It's like a spreadsheet. It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
That's what a database is, but you can imagine it being like you're keeping records, keeping account of I have 17 of this and 15 of that, and that's what you're keeping track of.
Mm-hmm.
What's different about Bitcoin and other blockchain technologies is it's the first database where you and I and other people can agree on what that is in that database, what that spreadsheet says. So you have 7 apples and I have 5 pears or whatever. Although in this case it's just these units of this sort of made up currency. But we can agree without having one person keep track of that ledger. And this is another word you'll sometimes hear for this technology is it's distributed ledger. And again, this is does start to get technical in terms of how it does it. But the properties, we can all understand the properties, which is like every other database, right? Google owns your Google Sheet when you make it. When you open an Excel spreadsheet, it's on your hard drive. This is this kind of database that we can all interact with, but no one party owns it. There's not, so you can't go call up the CEO of Bitcoin and say, delete this from the database or update this record, right? So if we compare this with the traditional banking system, right? Your account, your cash is kept by some bank. Some bank has it. So if the government wants to get money or a creditor wants to get money or someone else, they call up the bank and the bank can give them your money. They have the power to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're trusting. In the case of Bitcoin, when I own Bitcoin, if I keep my wallet, locally, I'm not using Coinbase or something else. No one can come and get it. They have to get it from me. It's my money. And so what it fundamentally is it's sort of digital cash is another word you'll hear for this. So we can now have, and cash is different from credit because when I hand you $5, right, like you've got the $5. I can't call someone else and say, take the $5 out of Michelle's pocket, right?
Yeah.
And so that's sort of what this does is it lets us have cash on the internet. And that's exciting for all of the reasons that cash is interesting instead of, using your credit card all the time.
Yeah. So is it sort of like trying to wrap my head around the concept because it is an interesting concept. It's basically almost like Wi-Fi cash.
Yeah.
Sort of. It's just floating around in the stratosphere and people can pull it from all different, wherever they are in the world.
You've got this network of computers that are maintaining the ledger. And what you're doing is when I send you some Bitcoin, I'm issuing a command that network sees and it verifies and says, yep, Jeremy really does have 5 Bitcoin and he's going to send 5 Bitcoin to Michelle, and the networks perform that, and then the 5 Bitcoin is in your Bitcoin wallet. The same way as if I had handed you $5. Of course, 5 Bitcoin's worth a lot more than $5.
I was gonna say, yeah.
So not exactly similar in that regard, but it's yours. And so there's intermediary, right? It's going directly from my account to your account.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, and this is how it's different from a bank. Whereas if I was sending you $5, as a wire transfer, like the bank is actually being the custodian.
Yeah, they
There's
have
a
to
period,
approve it
yeah,
and put it through and
right,
handle it.
right.
Okay. So so you have that. Now, what determines the value of the crypto? Because you see it rising and lowering all the time, which is why a lot of people think of it as an investment versus a currency.
Right, right. And so, I mean, the value of Bitcoin is determined the value of really, I actually think like commodities are one of the best examples. What determines the price of some fabric or gold or other metals or
whatever
these
the
kind
market will bear.
Exactly. And so it's how much, well, what's the demand and what's the supply, and so that's why the price goes up and down is when the price of Bitcoin goes down when a bunch of people are selling it.
Yeah.
The price goes up when people are more interested in buying it, and people are excited about buying Bitcoin in particular because they think that it's going to become this sort of foundational store of value, this digital store of value. And I think that's actually kind of interesting because when Bitcoin was created, the creator of Bitcoin, who's this anonymous, it's kind of an interesting story there in and of itself. It's created anonymously. So there's this pseudonym, Satoshi, and no one knows who he really is.
Probably better that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a fascinating thing to have such an impactful technology created by someone, and we don't even know who they are. And I can't think of very many parallels to that kind of thing in history. So that's definitely very, very interesting. Very like it's something out of a sci-fi novel. This anonymous person makes this really disruptive technology. I forget where I was going with that, honestly.
That's okay. Well, I was gonna say it's funny because like normally like in history when people want to everyone wants to take credit for something, so people are like stealing each other's patents.
Yeah. And
here you have somebody who created something that's so impactful, like you said, and doesn't even want the credit for it.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say that he created he wanted to create digital cash. And Bitcoin, it's now kind of the question is, Bitcoin is certainly a very impactful technology. It's not really being used as cash because it's become so popular. Ironically, as blockchain gets, a lot of times as blockchain gets more popular, it gets more expensive to use it. So Satoshi wanted you to be able to buy, sort of cheaper goods online. Now a Bitcoin transaction can cost you $5, $10, $20 just to perform. And so, you're not going to buy... You're not going to buy. There's a lot of things you're not going to pay $5 just to pay someone.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. So it's become more of this for larger transactions and this store value. There are people who are working on technologies to make it cheaper to spend again, and it's an area of active development. But also what Satoshi did is that insight that we can create this kind of database. You can then build all kinds of different things on top of that because in the same way you can have a simple spreadsheet that says keeps track of how many Bitcoins we all have. You can have way more expansive things. So like my company uses a blockchain to keep track of digital content. So you can take that same property of Bitcoin, which is this local ownership, local control, rather than trusting an intermediary, and we do that for digital content. So your handle, when you publish videos, instead of your handle being owned by YouTube, you can own your handle in the same way that you can own Bitcoin instead of trusting the bank to own your Bitcoin. And so if you look at this current era where tech companies have become really political and people are scared of losing their accounts, or just generally like, why do we want to surrender this power to these big tech companies who frequently don't have our best interests? Same kind of thing behind Bitcoin, right? The banks kind of stink, right?
Yeah.
So why do we want to surrender power to the banks, to these entities that don't treat us well?
Yeah.
Why do we want to surrender? So it's the same kind of thing. And so you can do, you can build all kinds of markets. You can build, there's these crazy things called decentralized autonomous organizations, which are like almost like public stock companies, but they're being run on the blockchain. You can tokenize all kinds of assets. I mean, some of this stuff gets pretty crazy, and I wouldn't claim to even understand it all in depth. But that core idea of, okay, we can have this database, and it's not owned by anyone. That's what blockchain provides. That's why all the excitement is there. I do think, and this is where I probably am in the minority, honestly, of people buying it. Like, I got excited about blockchain for purposes of empowerment. I liked the idea that we didn't have to trust these entities that I think are frequently like exploitative or even malicious. And so that's what I'm excited about. It's like, it's cool if we get rich, we make some money, but like I don't like that there's two credit card companies, and if you sell something online that the credit card companies don't like, that you can't do business, right? And they go after innocent type things, whether that's like like raw milk or firearms or other things that are on the kind of border but should completely be legal. And you've got two companies controlling the entire financial system, two companies that talk to each other and are best friends.
Right, yeah.
And you're not allowed to start new ones because it's so heavily regulated. And so like I'm excited about this same kind of idea. Like I don't like the idea that my account could be disappeared. Like I'm a big fan of Ron Paul. I don't like that Ron Paul's account gets taken down by the big tech companies, and so I'm excited for this. It's like, all right, cool, if we make some money, that's fantastic, but I'm excited about it for that reason. There are a lot of people who are just trying to get rich quick. I think that's a bit like playing casino games, especially if you don't understand what you're doing. And so you'll see these stories about someone, 100x, but you can walk into Vegas and put it all on, green, or put it all, take those crazy bets, and sometimes you win. And you're not, the people who are losing money, that's not going to be the big story. People aren't going to talk as publicly about the fact that they lost money. So I think if you find it interesting, if you're curious about it, spend a little bit of money and start playing around with it. Start by learning. If you're doing it for investment, either stick with like Bitcoin and maybe Ethereum seem to be the ones that are like the most established. Going around picking random ones, it's like picking a stock at random, right? Not really the best idea. You could do it. You might do it, and you might get a big return because you picked the right one. And I do think generally, like, blockchain is only going to get bigger and bigger. But if you're kind of not really doing a lot of deep diving and deep diligence, like, it's kind of tough because you're going to be. It's kind of like when new information comes out in the market. It's like not a game, literally a game of telephone, but it takes time to propagate, right? Yeah. And when you're the last one, when you're sort of the least sophisticated, or when you're kind of the most likely to lose in these games, and that's kind of the game that you're playing. Yeah. So I think if you're just kind of, I would say maybe take $50, $100, a couple $100, something that's like, you can think of it as like, oh, well, this is the same kind of thing you justify as like an indulgence, something, right? Yeah. And take that and be curious with it, and if you end up making some money off of it, great, but don't. I think it's a bad idea. There's generally not like free lunches in the world. You're not gonna easily. If someone's saying, oh, you're gonna 5x your money, you're gonna 10x your money. These people are trying to scam you, almost exclusively. So, or they're well intentioned, but they're misled, right? So I'm not trying to say it's always malicious, but I think these people a lot of times are misled. Yeah.
So if we're looking at, like, obviously, that's kind of what crypto is. There's a security value too. So I know you're talking a little bit about like the hardware wallets that they have, and then there's like the software wallets, and then the actual exchange, which is like the Coinbase or Kraken or something like that. I mean, how secure are these different things? And if somebody was to get started, do you have any recommendations?
Yeah. So if you just want to buy cryptocurrency, Coinbase is probably the easiest, especially if you're an American. And it's fine. I have a Coinbase account. Like so people will say, like, not the people who are especially security conscious. It's true. So when you use Coinbase, you're trusting them to be a custodian. So this idea of having this local control, now Coinbase has become your bank, right? So so if you're into it because you're like, I want it to be mine and it's mine and no one can get it without my permission, then you do want to get a local wallet. If you're talking about larger amounts, I definitely would recommend one of these hardware type wallets, so it's not even like connected to the internet. If you're talking about, like, again, $100, a couple $100, I think it's fine to just sort of keep it on your computer or keep it on your phone, and it's, maybe I'm more reckless than that. I mean, I don't care. I have no problem having $500 worth of Bitcoin on my phone. I'm not that worried about it. Yeah. My phone's already worth $500.
Right.
But yes, if you're having larger amounts, you can do that. And so again, it kind of depends on why you're getting into it. If you're getting into it, actually, if you're saying I'm buying Bitcoin for an investment, then it might be more rational for you to trust Coinbase to not lose your keys
Yeah.
than to, because again, it's the same thing as cash. So if you use that hardware wallet and now you forgot your password, or
Yeah.
your kid broke it in half and you didn't have the right backups, or like other things that can go wrong. Like if you're the kind of person who's like, regularly having, computer problems, like, well, you might not want to take this level of responsibility on. So it kind of depends on where you're at. If you are really excited about that property of, oh, this is mine, then you do need to, you can buy it on Coinbase. You can then transfer it off of Coinbase into your local wallet. And there are good, sort of facts and instructions for this, online that walk you through it to do that.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say we ended up getting the Trezor wallet for the hardware one. And then there's all the different other softwares and stuff, and I'm like, there's so much out there, and I think that's the big confusing thing is there's so many different platforms now and the different wallets, and it can get confusing for somebody who's just starting to be like, okay, what do we actually need? Like, which one's the best? That kind of thing. So I know we were kind of talking a little bit about how, one of the nice things about crypto is that kind of localization and security. And I know that there's a lot of different laws around crypto and some laws that I guess they're trying to put into place for crypto. And it's not really, let's just say the Biden administration just said that there's like a war on cryptocurrency. Pretty much.
Yeah.
So.
I would say that there's absolutely a war on cryptocurrency. And it's also, this is very common when there's something new. The government's got a bunch of old laws. We've got millions of pages of laws. We've got hundreds of federal agencies, all of which want to bring as much into their sphere of control as they can. Yeah. So right now we're in a place where, you've got a number of federal agencies where like basically the SEC, the IRS, what is it called? Like the CFTC, they govern laws around commodities. Yeah. They're all in disagreement over where cryptocurrency, what it is. They all have different rules. It's really a nightmare. It's especially a nightmare, honestly, if you're trying to operate and build in the space, like run a company. Yeah. As an individual, you're mostly concerned with what the IRS thinks. As an individual, unless you're at like Elon Musk level where your tweets are moving the price of these tokens.
Dogecoin.
Yeah. So then then maybe you want to be concerned about the SEC. If that's not you, if you're not Elon Musk, you're probably not worried about those. You're probably mostly worried about the IRS. The key thing being there, like, if you're like buying and trading regularly, you are triggering a bunch of tax obligations every time you're booking a profit. So you do want to try to, it's a nightmare to follow the laws. Honestly, they actually, and this is another example of how they're kind of like suppressing it in sort of extra legal ways. Not extra legal, but like giving these like aggressive interpretations of things that like make it harder on you. Yeah. Like technically what they want you to do is like be constantly booking like the exact price at every second of time, that you're exchanging the cryptocurrency, which is a very difficult thing to do, right? So in other words, like if I just want to give you a little bit of Bitcoin, like I need to know, well, exactly how many dollars, was that Bitcoin worth at that exact time if I want to do my taxes properly. Now, I will say, if you don't want the government to know that you have cryptocurrency, I'm not encouraging anyone to break the law, but you don't have to tell the government everything you buy. You're not going to want to use Coinbase, because Coinbase does require doing all of this, like KYC and other things. Yeah. So if you're looking to get it and not have that be tracked by these third parties, or maybe you don't trust Coinbase or whoever, you can look at something like, there's a site called Local Bitcoins, which is you go peer-to-peer and you actually meet up with someone and you give them some cash and they give you Bitcoin, and that's a way that you can do it. You have to be, I don't think it's the easiest to use technologically, but there's this thing called the Bisc Network, which is this decentralized exchange, and a lot of it's for exchanging crypto for other crypto. But I believe you can also get in with things like Amazon gift cards and some other things that you can buy with a credit card. Yeah. Now this is kind of hard software to use in my opinion. I don't think it's that user friendly. They're working on it, of course, but it's very new. It's a couple of years old, so it's like decently hardened, but it's just like what they're doing is very cutting edge, and also they're a bunch of big nerds, so it's kind of geared towards other nerds. Yeah. Yeah, you can get in with. I think Amazon gift cards is probably the easiest one that's like not crypto.
Yeah.
And then these exchanges also let you swap your cryptos for other cryptos. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I was gonna say, I know there's also like ATM machines where you can like hook up your hardware wallet and go in there and take out like USD dollars from your Bitcoin.
Yes. I haven't used those very much. I don't know. I imagine that they are doing, or at least attempting to do, a lot of the same KYC that Coinbase is, or Coinbase type things. Like I don't like. Have you used them for any substantial amounts?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I think maybe they let you get in with cash and don't require you to show that much. I mean, if they're allowing you to like cash out and sell, and honestly even buying, like it wouldn't surprise me if for any substantial amounts they end up attempting to collect your ID and these other things. Now maybe in the case of those, it's a little bit easier to not obey. Maybe you should be that. Yeah, that's my idea. I don't know. And again, I don't want to encourage anyone to to be breaking the law. So do your own research in that regard. I've actually never used. I've like fiddled around with the UI, but also the prices are generally not very good at these. So like if you're buying from the Bitcoin ATMs, you're almost always paying a decent, like Coinbase is probably one of the cheaper, like more in terms of, it's definitely going to be cheaper than the ATMs.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're there, I will say like the crypto community is very friendly and to new people, and so like wherever you live, there's almost certainly like Bitcoin meetups or cryptocurrency meetups, and if you go there, there are going to be people who will sell you cryptocurrency for cash, like pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah.
And they'll also be friendly, so they want more people. Like the crypto community, it's kind of culty. It's a little bit like so you go to a cryptocurrency meetup. It's like maybe like going to like the first like Mormon sermon, and everyone's like welcome. Like they want to they're maybe not dressed the same, but they want to they want to sell you. They're not selling, but you know what I mean. They want to convince you that this is an interesting thing. So they're going to be very welcoming. Is what I'm really trying to say. Is they're going to be very welcoming because they want you to appreciate this thing that they feel that they've discovered and found. So I will say, if you're interested, but a lot of this wasn't making sense, or you feel like you can't get through it, like go out to one of these meetups. Like here in New Hampshire, we have the longest running Bitcoin meetup in the entire world. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're going. I don't think we're coming up on like 8 years of a regular weekly Bitcoin meetup. Yeah, yeah. The New Hampshire is it's a great scene for cryptocurrency here in New Hampshire. It's like here in New Hampshire, like people are actually using it.
Okay,
and certainly you get the people who are buying it.
I was going to say, because I know a few places that have like the ATM machines for the Bitcoin and
and you can go to these market days where people take Bitcoin. Vitalik Buterin, who's the founder of Ethereum, which is really the second biggest cryptocurrency, came up here and actually met a bunch of when he was inventing Ethereum, because this was one of the hotbeds for Bitcoin, and he came up and he toured here and he met some of the people here who were working early on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And because New Hampshire was like one of the spots where it was really big
cool.
early. Yeah, there's a lot of secret Bitcoin millionaires in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Now, and again, I said they were getting Bitcoin when it
was like 8 cents.
Yeah, or a couple bucks or $10 when now it's over 50,000. You know, and so like that's. I think Bitcoin can continue to go up in price. I mean, I think the odds of it going up 5,000 again are. Yeah. I would bet against that personally. 5,000 times. Not $5,000. Yeah. I remember, and that's what Bitcoin was worth pennies at one point. So we're talking about going up. Now it's worth $50,000.
Yeah.
So it's. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. So my husband and I first looked at Bitcoin back in 2016 or something. And at that point, I think Bitcoin was around like 16 grand or something along that. I remember looking at it and being like, oh, it's too expensive. I don't really know much about it. Like, we'll pass. And now I'm sitting here and it's like 55,000, and I'm like, if only we had done something.
But you can do this with all of it. You can find plenty of stocks where if you look at a stock and say, oh, it's 3x from where I had looked at it a couple of years ago. Yeah. And, the thing is, generally with investments, you're investing in something because like something productive is going to be done with it. So like I'm buying a stock, effectively the entity selling the stock is going to take that money and they're going to build more stuff, make more cars, whatever it is. Similarly, if I'm putting my money into a bank, they're doing the same thing, right? Their bank is giving me a return on my money because they're taking that money and they're loaning it out to contractors or to other people. And so you're getting this return on productive activity that's happening as a result of your investment, right? This is sort of traditional investing. Investing in Bitcoin doesn't, and this is the sort of like Warren Buffett criticism of Bitcoin that I'm doing. There's a lot of Bitcoiners don't like him, but he has a point here that I think is underappreciated, which is that like when you're buying Bitcoin, Bitcoin isn't doing anything productive for you, right? It's not. You're hoping that someone will buy that Bitcoin from you for more money in the future. So it's much closer to investing in something like a commodity, right? If I buy a bunch of silver or gold or even wheat, right? I'm buying that because I think that someone is going to pay me more for it in the future. While I bought it, it's just sitting there. The wheat's not doing anything, right? And so like it's a little bit more zero sum in that regard. Now the reason that cryptocurrency could still be a good investment is because you think, well, yes, it's not doing anything productive, but there's a scarce amount of it, and people are only going to want more and more of it in the future. So it's like, you're buying some esoteric metal, before people realize that we need it to make some new battery or something like this. And so you're hoping that, but that's sort of the shape of the investment is you're hoping that people are going to want this more. It's not an investment in the way that a lot of other investments are, where you're buying into a restaurant or you're buying an equity or whatever, and that there's something productive that's going to happen as a result of that investment. And I do think that is like at least worth recognizing that difference, because generally in most cases you want investments that are doing something productive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then so I guess you kind of mentioned it a little bit. Do you think that cryptocurrency is going to be a currency in the future, or some sort of a big future thing that we should look forward to and see it evolving and growing?
Yeah, look, I've spent my last 5 years working on a public blockchain company, and our technology is used by tens of millions of people each month now, and I think it's going to grow to billions eventually. And so like I'm a big believer in the technology. Part of what makes it, and so I do think like the industry in general is going to continue to grow. So there is an argument that, hey, because there's still a lot more that's going to be done with this. It's one of the reasons that it is so popular though is it's actually a reaction to sort of like how bad the government and some regulations have become. Like if you look at what like this digital cash type property, like a lot of the reason that that's appealing is because the government and the banks have kind of combined to sort of like have a very locked down financial system, right? One of the things that there's this, have you ever heard of Operation Choke Point?
So heard of a lot of them.
So this is one where this is one of the things I was talking about. Where they use the financial system to so the Department of Justice and the federal government basically pressured Visa and MasterCard to stop providing services for all of these, like, I don't even want to use the word shady because I don't think what they're doing was shady, but it's stuff like firearms, marijuana paraphernalia, things related to sex work, like the things that are quite probably legal but that are on the border, and they basically used the government to pressure these companies to stop providing them service, right? And so like one of the reasons Bitcoin is appealing is, right, it solves this kind of thing. Similarly, right, we own, if we hold dollars, the government can print as many as they wanted. They just injected what I think trillions, hundreds of billions. I don't know what it is. It's so crazy amount of money. They just make more of it. And so like a lot of the appeal of this technology is like reacting to broken and terrible things that the government is doing. Quite frankly, is a big part of it. And so like one of the reasons cryptocurrency, you may say is very unlikely, but like one of the reasons cryptocurrency would become less valuable would be if the government got better. Stop doing these other garbage things.
Which will never happen though. So
and I mean the government is trying to regulate it. I think their attitude right now is more like they're concerned about things that they want to be able to see everything that's happening, and so they're not worried about Coinbase, because on Coinbase everyone's going through KYC. It's like going into your bank, so like Coinbase, you're going to have to give them a picture of your ID or your passport and like verify all of these things. And so the government's actually not concerned about cryptocurrency usage on Coinbase because if someone's going to do something shady on Coinbase, the government can call up Coinbase and can get your Bitcoin. If you're trying to evade taxes, well, guess what? The government's going to get all of the transactions that happen on Coinbase.
Yeah.
So they tend to be most scared of things like the Bitcoin ATMs, like local Bitcoins, the things that are potentially removing their insight into what's happening, because that's ultimately what they want. Is they want to be able to control everything and track everything.
Make sure there's no money laundering or illegal activities being used with it.
Like so-called KYC, know your customer, and AML, anti-money laundering laws. I mean, they're a big part of why the financial system is so messed up.
Yeah.
And they're why you have to do. Like Coinbase doesn't want to do these things, right? Like Coinbase is not like I'm pretty confident that Brian Armstrong does not love the government.
Right. Yeah.
He wants the government to not, kill his
family.
I was gonna say his business, but yeah.
All of the above.
Yeah. This is I think what their concern is, and things that like threaten that are what they're going to be. Kind of going after the most.
Okay. And then, real quick, because we'll get this all kind of tied up, but there are some things out there. I know you said to kind of be weary of some of these people who are promising you these big returns and that kind of thing, especially with crypto. But there's some companies out there, like I just heard of one, it's called Copy Pro Traders. I don't know if you've heard of it. But it's essentially like a software that plugs into Kraken, and you have your Bitcoin on Kraken, and it copies, like you select pro traders in the software, and it copies their trades, so it helps you get better results, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think something like that is helpful or useful for people who might just be getting started, or would you kind of say stay away from something like that?
Well, I don't know anything about that software specifically, so I don't want to comment about, like, say something is good or bad. But in general, it's I don't know if I think it's hard to beat the market. Like I think that if especially it's like you have to be that elite. It's like that very elite, like maybe top couple of percent, maybe 5 to 10%. If you're just talking about like winning on this back and forth trading, because you've also got to pay fees and stuff, and also you're also triggering tax obligations. So it's kind of like sitting down and playing like poker at Vegas. Like if you're not one of the best one or two people at the table, you're going to lose money because the house is taking a rake, know?
Yeah.
So you have to, if you're going to do that kind of thing, like, and so the idea that like, oh, I'm just going to download this software and run it, like I'm biased against that working because I think that's unlikely to be a strategy that's going to put you in the top, in that top percentile. I think if you want to do it as an investment, like, and this is my general strategy for all investments. I'm kind of a boring investor.
That's okay.
So it's like you should have a regular plan of like I'm gonna 1% of my paycheck I'm gonna put into crypto. I'm gonna buy mostly Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to I'm just gonna buy and hold, and I'm not gonna trade it, and I'm not even gonna look at the price.
Yeah.
It's actually I mean I own equities and I own cryptocurrency, and even the cryptocurrency in my own company, like I try to not look at the price all the time. I don't think it's actually I don't think it's net psychologically helpful actually.
Yeah.
The negative feelings you'll feel when it goes down are sort of like larger than the positive feelings that you'll feel when it goes up.
Yeah.
And so if you're not going to be doing this back and forth trading, which I think is generally a bad idea, especially for the tax reasons, like that's a big part of why it's bad, is that like not only is it this like borderline zero-sum game, like when you win, you're triggering additional tax obligations as well because you've sold it within the same
triggering the profit.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I think it's this is not tax advice, and I'm bad at taxes. But this is, I think it's if you sell it within the first year that you've had it versus if you sell it a year after. It has to do with a difference in terms of how it's taxed in terms of short-term capital gains, and so you don't want to trigger short-term capital gains if you can avoid it.
Okay.
And so that's another reason to not be doing this.
Yeah.
Again, well, you better be very good at it because you're
Yeah.
triggering an additional tax obligation.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and so I guess we kind of talked about, where to get started. So basically just if somebody's interested, get a Coinbase account or one of those other platforms, and basically get started that way. I mean, did you have any other advice for anybody?
Yeah, I think the top two things are, Coinbase or to go to the meetups are probably, because I promise you have to be pretty isolated place where there's not a cryptocurrency meetup.
Yeah.
I think even a town of 50 or 100,000 is going to have some sort of cryptocurrency meetup. So.
Yeah. And how would someone find a cryptocurrency meetup?
I'd probably, honestly, I think a lot of them are on meetup.com or on Facebook, or there's a Facebook group in your town or things like this. I would look at Facebook and Meetup as like the two most logical places, and if that doesn't turn up, just like go to Google.
Yeah.
I'm sure if Boise, Idaho cryptocurrency Meetup, I'm sure there's going to be one.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We've definitely learned a lot. And I know yours is called LBRY.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say, because I try to make cryptocurrency easy to use, so you don't have to know that much about it. If you really want to dig into my tech, go to lbry.com.
Okay.
If you want to just earn a little bit of cryptocurrency for watching videos, and you don't need to do anything fancy. You don't need to we have a website called Odyssey, ODYSEE.com. It's used by some very big creators. A lot of people say it's like YouTube was 5 or 10 years ago before YouTube got really corporate.
Yeah.
There's tens of millions of videos on there. You'll find creators that you know and like, and you'll earn a little bit of cryptocurrency for watching each day. And it'll also allow you to create an online identity that you truly own, that can't be taken away from you. And so go there, check it out, create an account, and just watch some stuff and have a good time.
Okay, absolutely. And so, real quick, if somebody goes onto that website and creates an account, can they then post videos as well?
That's right.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
You might be seeing me on there.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thanks.